The Fed FOMC meetings are behind closed doors, but after 5 years, the meeting minutes become public. We can get a glimpse of what is said behind the curtain and use it to our advantage. To get the depth of knowledge required to understand the markets requires understanding what happens much further beyond what the mainstream economists are looking at. The Fed holds many answers to our questions. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to talk about the Federal Reserve. They recently released some of the meeting minutes, and I believe it's important to cover everything that we can related to the Federal Reserve because they really go into depth into what could happen, what is happening as it unfolds. We look at their actions and we take that and then we start to piece the puzzle together. In these meeting minutes, you're going to see some information. They're talking about what happens with the taper tantrum, tapering their balance sheets, rising interest rates, and what happens with the Federal Reserve in general and how they act and react. So this is back in 2013. So remember, take yourself back to that point, that time frame, and I want to bring this to you right away. This right here is Powell speaking, and he had a few points to say, and I just wanted to note what I believe to be very important. It's very, very hard to know, I have to say. The more time I've spent with the markets, the less I believe in my own ability to predict them. And I think that's largely because when you talk to the people who actually matter for this, they always talk their book. It's just the way it is. The people who are willing to talk to you are not the ones who really matter, unfortunately, and that's just the way it is. And then here at the bottom paragraph, he basically says, so I think we find ourselves in a situation where we are on the roof and there's no risk-free path. We've got to jump. So basically, they go into this whole lines after this, and even another individual steps up and starts speaking about it. But the point is that they are looking at this period of time, 2013. What do we do? Do we just start doing this? We printed all the money. We had this massive balance sheet. We need to increase interest rates. And of course, they're trying to make the case for that. Some of the individuals are not for it. Some of them are for it. You know how it works with this whole dovish and hawkish business. But regardless, anyway, that was that one. And then in a 1 month span, we had another meeting where they released these minutes here, and I wanted to show that to you. I'm going to have to scroll through it. I'm going to cover a bunch of points within this, but stay tuned because this is so important to understand what the Federal Reserve is actually willing to admit. So this here comes from the quotes of Fisher, and I think it's important to listen to all of these high-level individuals, regardless of their title. They are all part of the same group of people. I discussed views with some 25 market veterans. I would say the one consensus and only one emerged, and that is that quantitative easing is unambiguously inflating asset prices and, according to some, is distorting financial market functionality. As one said, artificially low interest rates invite fiscal sin. They get into more details about this, but think about what they just talked about, that the Federal Reserve is actually discussing the fact that quantitative easing is creating asset bubbles, and they don't deny it. I'll get further into this, but essentially they're trying to say, look, we're doing this quantitative easing and we need to stop it. We need the actual real market to pick up the pieces. This is what they say in here. If you have the time to read it for yourself, I will definitely cover some issues in here. So let's move on. If you just scroll through here, it is obviously extremely long and I can't cover it all. And 99.9% of people will not read it all. But we should at least cover some of it because it gives us an idea of what's happening. So within this, there's some more details. He talks about Japan and the mistakes that they made. But here, if you look in the middle somewhere here, he says this: I will say for the nth time, for the Googleplex time, as I've argued at this table, I just want to reiterate my mantra: unless fiscal and regulatory policy incent business to use the cheap and abundant capital that we've made available, it will not be used to create jobs to the degree that we desire. It will be used to set the stage, but it cannot lift the curtain and act the play. And it has, I believe, had a wealth effect, but principally for the rich and the quick, the Buffetts, the Carlyles, Goldman Sachs, Powells, and maybe the Fishers, those who can borrow money for nothing and drive bonds and stocks and property higher in price, and profit goes into their pocket. But it has not done much, at least it seems to me, looking at the data, to put people back to work to earn a living by the sweat of their brow. This is confirmed by the data, including the employment cost index that was released. And it goes on. Now, this is so important, especially because it's coming from the Federal Reserve themselves. They are actually admitting that quantitative easing benefits the rich and not the middle class. And that is so critical to understand. We're getting the information 5 years after this happened, but at least we're getting it. We know specifically that this is the case already, but to actually see the Federal Reserve talking about it is really unfolding many layers of the details of how this institution works. I hope that you found this video informative. I don't want to put any more information into this. I just wanted to read it for you, and hopefully that will set off a light bulb or spark something within you to understand what the Federal Reserve is all about. They are not there to help you. In the end, there's going to be a crisis, and people need to face the music. Now, the Federal Reserve is not going to support the markets for you. If they want to do something, they're going to do it for their friends. But their friends have the patience. Their friends don't have to worry about 401ks. They don't worry about pensions. They have other plans. And that's what people don't understand. They are going to be able to withstand the 50% drop, knowing they're going to pile their money in at that time when it's 50, 60, 70, 80% drops. They're totally fine with it because they know exactly when to put their money in, invest at the right time, and then watch that grow further and further. You and I, we don't have that opportunity, okay? We're not the Goldman Sachses. We're not the Powells. We're not the Buffetts. So we need to understand where we're at today, and I think it's so important to do so. If you found the video informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, you're supporting this channel, so I do appreciate that very much. I try to get into the information you're definitely not going to find on the mainstream news, and that you rarely find to this detail on the alternative news as well. So I do appreciate it when you do support me through the thumbs up, through the comments. Thank you very much. And last but not least, if you want the financial education that you were not taught in school, well, then these two books have everything you need. If you go to the link in the description, it's going to allow you to flip through the pages of these books to see if you like them. And if you want the audiobook version, you can get that at themoneygps.com. All right, if you're still here, let's chat. Now, when we look at the markets, we need to understand what is actually making the market rise and fall on a daily basis. Most people think that it's individuals buying stocks to make the market go up and selling stocks, which makes the market go down. But instead, what it is actually central bank liquidity. When the liquidity is in abundance, stocks will rise. When the, let's say, Federal Reserve in this case, decides to drain that liquidity to dry it up, the stocks will fall. To 99% of investors, that makes no sense. That's not how it works. But of course, this is the new world, and it is the central banks that decide on a daily basis if the stock market will rise or fall. Stanley Druckenmiller has confirmed this information. I did a video about it and I will bring that to you. I just want you to know exactly where this is all coming from. It's wild every single day. And most people believe that what we are seeing are natural market forces. But nothing could be further from the truth. A lot of people today, they have their retirement accounts relying on, a moderate to good performance of the stock market, of the bond market. And that may not be the case. So I worry about people who are contacting me on a regular basis, asking me what they should do. Now, of course, I don't give financial advice, but for a lot of people, they are stuck in a rut. And so, there's only so much information that I can cover. It requires unprecedented diligence on a daily basis to be able to produce enough income, to purchase assets, to be able to constantly study this data that's coming out on a daily basis. You cannot be complacent. So the number one thing is to read, to learn, and to gain and attain as much knowledge as you possibly can. Acquire the assets as you are able to, pay down the debt, and hopefully be able to retire or whatever your goals are in a reasonable fashion. Because there's too many people today that, unfortunately, their situation is not going to be too good in the near future. So that's all. Thank you for listening to my little rant. Take care.